Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. We talk about love, and before the break, I just asked Gary about how do we date during times of very limited ways of connecting, even times of lockdown. And so many people feel the need to find a relationship, find love, because the loneliness is excruciating. So, can you give us some dating tips, Gary?
Sure. So you were saying something very significant before the break. COVID is an emotional amplifier. So if you've already walked in with a wound of feeling unwelcomed, right? Unwelcome is, like the wound I used to have was my mother did refuse to even name me. I was so unwanted for the first 3 weeks. And so unwelcome was a feeling that for many, many years just traveled with me, right? And junior high, I thought I was the nerd. That's just another form of unwelcome, right? Of course, I was a little bit back then, you know. But if you walk in with a feeling of unwelcomed or unworthy, if the unwelcome people, oh no, it's just another example, I can't connect. The unworthy people go, see, I'm not even worthy to have a connection. Why didn't I have one walking in here? Whatever feeling you walk in with, if it's, more distance or disempowered, oh no, here it is again, I can't make any choices. That will get amplified. When any of those insecure feelings come into the COVID, it's like an emotional amplifier. And it does, COVID is kind of wicked on what it does to our own sense of self-esteem. It makes us feel disempowered, unworthy, distanced. Now, and what that leads to for a lot of singles is that feeling of hopelessness, especially hopeless. How can I even date at this time? Oh my God. And for all singles, it's the exact opposite of couples. Couples get too much right to belong to each other, and the singles are getting way too much right to be a me and no right to be a we, no right to
Mhm.
connect. It's the worst of all worlds for both. Too much me, too much we. With the singles, but you can date, and I think, one of the salvations here is online dating. It used to be swipe left, meet someone new, meet someone new, meet someone new, right? And we didn't value the quality of connections that were lying right before us because there might be someone better at that next swipe left, right? And now people are noticing, well, you can't meet them all. So the good news is people are noticing, I've got to really get to know someone to see if I can trust them. That's a huge bonus for COVID. It's teaching us to actually swipe down and get to know each other. So what you do, if you're, and I've had several of my own single clients have used this successfully. You spend 2 or 3 weeks on Zoom having Zoom dates, 20, 30 minutes, maybe 45. Don't do the 5 hour versions where you get false sense of intimacy and then people freak out because they shared too much. But you do that for 2 or 3 weeks until you can get a feel for their lifestyle. Do you trust it? And of course, if you have any medical conditions, you need to talk about that if you want to meet somebody with your doctor and determine your comfortable risk level. If you've got anything medically going on that's more suspect, by all means, talk about that. But after you've gotten a chance to get a feel for somebody, if you hear them saying, "Yeah, I can't meet tomorrow night because I'm getting together with my 10 buddies for a card game," you've got a problem, right? Or you hear, "Yeah, I'm going to go and see my grandchildren at the big family reunion," you've got a problem. So, but if you get a feel that they're trustworthy, they're honest, they're open, and you like this person, then at that point, after 2 or 3 weeks, you get a feel for their life, how much you trust them. If both are willing, then you decide to, you can, you can quarantine if that's necessary, and then you can create what I call a temporary couple bubble. A
Mhm.
temporary couple, all couples have this bubble that keeps a lot of different influences out, and it's a safe place inside. And you choose to radically, social distance, wear masks, the whole thing, to make sure the other person is safe. And so, you may say, okay, I will not go to that card game. I will not go to that reunion. I will wear a mask. I will cut down anybody that comes in my house. And now when they've created this medically clean space for each other, now they can get together if they feel like it. They can hold hands. If they want to, they can kiss. you know, and it doesn't mean they are married. I had one client that did it for about 5 weeks with a guy, made the couple bubble, went out 7 dates, and then they realized we're not quite fit for each other. But they had a normal dating sequence, so to speak, right? They got together, went out about 7 times, and realized, well, really, two really wonderful people. That was the successful couple bubble.
I really like what you just said about swiping down, because I think this is really the lack of choices may also lead to simply, focusing earlier on something that feels right, and not just, having 20 or 30 different options available at all times, which I think for our heart and our mind is just overwhelming. And so just being able to say, well, this feels good, so let's see where this goes, and giving it a chance, and not just saying, oh, I go one time and then I'm going to have tomorrow somebody else and the day after and somebody else. I think that can also maybe lead to an acceleration of a connection that before may have not really been possible, because we all just too distracted and our attention spans are just a little shorter than normal. So yeah, that may be a benefit of this whole COVID situation.
Well, there is, Barry Schwartz wrote a book called The Paradox of Choice. And the research shows that when people have more choices, they're actually less satisfied with the choices they make. And the guy that wrote the preface for my book, Paul Carrick Brunson, we did a show together, closed out a bar in Berkeley till about 1 o'clock afterwards because we just hit a connection, right? And he used to have an elite matchmaking service in Washington, D.C. And he told me privately, he says, we used to give people 6 really quality matches so they could feel like, they had some really good choices. We were giving them value for the money. And what we found out is when we gave them 6, they would be a little more flippant. They would just go through the profiles and they just kind of look at it, and they wouldn't take any of them seriously. And some they would date and they didn't date. He says, so then we realized, he says, I thought about the research by Barry Schwartz. So now, even though we could have given them 6, we gave them 2. 2 is now, oh, these are 2. These are precious. These are important. They were careful. They went, and when they went on dates, they were far more circumspect and they were more respectful. And what he found out, he says, more people made long-term matches, and commitments out of getting 2 than 6.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what's going on online. We think, oh, the kid in the candy store. If you've ever taken a kid in a candy store and given them $1 to get whatever, they can't make a choice.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think in general, you could, curse COVID, or you can see it as an
Yes.
opportunity to grow, an opportunity to maybe also change your priorities a little bit, reflect on yourself, your relationships. But one of the things that a lot of couples are dealing with is one being anxious and the other one not really knowing what to do, because maybe anxious because of finances or health issues or family that may be ill. What would you suggest? What are kind of the good strategies when one is suffering and the other one wants to support?
In what way, Friedemann? Like,
Let's say, for example, one has lost a job and they're really down, depressed, and the spouse says, well, I want to help, but I don't really know how. Should I just say, hey, see a therapist? Should I sit down and be like the cheerleader? Should I be the one who just listens? What would you say usually is what feeds the relationship the most?
well, everybody that will have lost a child or got overwhelmed by losing a parent or a friend will have a different set of needs. That's basic attachment theory, is really attuning to what that person needs. But in general speaking, you know, what I tell couples, and you're talking, and this is more of a couple issue,
Yes.
when they're dealing with the bottom line of what COVID is doing, um, is you have to make all feelings okay. And in general, you have to have a contract. All feelings are okay, but only one person freaks out at a time. One has to hold space when the other is bouncing off walls if they lose their job and they feel hopeless or scared. And you have to have regular times, we call them stress relieving conversations. And they're especially good for COVID, where 4 or 5 times a week you sit down, you don't talk about the relationship, you just talk about what's going on, and you're attentive to their feelings. You don't try to fix them. You say, wow, that's how you felt? Tell me more. What's the worst part of feeling home? I think, if you're a couple, you have to be able to just really hold space for those feelings, ask them what they need. And part of the we is just ask and then be of support in whatever ways they need. And the big thing for couples is, to let them know that you're there for the long term with them, that no matter what's going on, you're in it together. I can still remember one couple I worked with. I was working with her. I was being referred to her for business. I wasn't working on love and relationships. They're at a VIP day. They flew in, and and she told me her husband was a soulmate. They had a great marriage, and he flew in just to be of support. So, and at one point they were talking about this legal issue they were in, that where they were, and they both turned in unison without batting an eye, and they said, if someone comes after us or one or the other says, and they turned sideways and they said, we're in the foxhole together, guns blazing. Mm. They did it in unison. They were so orchestrated that they just knew no matter what happened, they were together. They had backup. And if someone has lost a job or lost a parent or lost a friend to all this stuff, which is one of the other consequences that comes here, if you know that someone's in that foxhole with you and loves you, that's all the difference, how you go through it.
But that, I think, is exactly what is so important, the sense of I have your back, which doesn't mean I gonna have the solution, doesn't mean I gonna fix it, doesn't mean I gonna, somehow lift you out of this going in the hole, which can, eventually be a foxhole, but sometimes it's just a hole of feeling bad, a hole of sadness or anxiety, and just having your partner share this with you and listen to you. I mean, I think that's a fascinating and wonderful tool that you shared with us. And I really, still really, we both benefit a lot from that stress relieving conversation.
Yeah, it's one thing doing a crisis alone. It's another when you know somebody has your back. One of the best things, I have a best friend from third grade, and during my first divorce, I was just hopeless. And I just remember I was in my early 30s, and he said, no, Gary, you're not alone. He says, my wife and I will always have your back. And there was just something knowing about that gave me the courage to go, to dare, to go, to rebuild.
Right.
Human beings don't do well in isolation. That's the worst thing I fear about COVID. We still have to find lots of ways to belong. That's why I'm doing all these podcasts, so that the world knows that we can get through this together. Even if we're isolated, you and I are of being of service. We're working together, and our audience is working it. Just notice for just a moment, we are in this together. We are sharing our wisdom to a lot of people, and those people are getting support from the universe called Friedemann and Gary. This is how we get through a crisis together as humans.
Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.